Everybody, welcome back to Historia to the Movies podcast. I am your host and creator, Jason Herbert, and every single week we are bringing you movies and the histories behind them. But that's not the case tonight. Tonight we are talking about the late, great, beloved James Earl Jones. If you're listening in right now, you'll know there's no music, there's no special editing tonight. We're putting this together quickly for you guys because I think we're all kind of maybe not in shock, but definitely mourning. And this guy is a guy who, obviously, if you're a person of a certain age, James Earl Jones meant the world to you. So I brought on for you tonight a guy who means the world to me, Thomas Lecaque. We can't keep this too serious, but Tom, welcome back to the pod.
Thanks for having me. I wish we're under better circumstances.
Well, we will. We'll have other circumstances when we do like the Indiana Jones movies, which he's not in. And also Walter Greason may be joining with us tonight. He may not, or we may have a third person who comes in the second act. But either way, I thought maybe tonight, there were a lot of stuff going around. Obviously, if you look at social media, people just paying their respects and the dues. It really kind of like it's part of that, and then it's also part of like this exhaling thing, Thomas, where it's like people are just kind of going, "Oh man," So what? I guess my question for you before we get this going is like, where were you when you heard? What were you doing?
I mean, so it's a Monday, so I spent most of my day teaching, and the first time I logged onto Twitter this afternoon, it was everywhere. That's how I found out. Twitter doing what it does best, telling you the worst news.
I feel like an absolute doofus because I'm supposed to be like the historian who has his finger on all the pulse of all the news stuff, especially when it comes to movies. And I didn't know. I had sat down this afternoon. I was going to do a podcast. Did do a podcast with Lou Moore today. And it was great. Lou's amazing. And as we're sitting down, Lou's like, hey, I don't know if you heard, but James Earl Jones just died about 40 minutes ago. And it just took the wind right out of my sails, man. I mean, we had the most amazing conversation. Lou is an amazing guy and does amazing work. And at the same time, like the whole time we're having this conversation, I was like, oh, it's just kind of hanging out back there. It's like, oh, yeah. And people don't live forever. I believe he was 93. Right?
Yeah.
If that's what Wikipedia tells me, and I can trust that. There's people don't live forever, and I know this, but it's still like, So anyway, I guess the question is, the first thing I have for you is like, we're just, guys, if you're listening in tonight, we're just grieving. I don't know. We're going to let this out. We're going to have James Earl Jones, what he meant. Like, when you think about him, what do you think about? I mean, first thing comes to your head.
I mean, it's the three roles for a millennial. It is Darth Vader, it's Admiral Greer, and it's Mufasa. And I like, it's a hell of a career to boil down to like those being the things that I immediately think of, but also like, God, like it's his voice, right? It's also like every time you hear his voice anywhere for any reason, like you immediately know who you're listening to. And he both plays one of the worst dads in all of film, one of the best dads of all of film, and the only person in the CIA that you should ever trust.
Did Jim Greer have kids, I wonder?
You know what? I have no idea. I am sure that gets addressed at some point. I have absolutely no idea.
Do you think he was like an absentee father? He was like, here was your Christmas present, but I was never here.
He's the surrogate father to Jack Ryan in all the movies.
He's definitely the mentor. Jack, boy. It's like, oh man.
Oh God, and he's so good at it. And it's,
Yeah. And obviously, like, we have to talk about Darth Vader, right? Because it's maybe the most iconic single character in film history. I mean, it really is. And the amazing thing is, he was the voice of that character. Like, I don't want to say didn't even like, when you think about it, when you say who was Darth Vader, you never think about David Prowse.
I mean, okay, normal healthy people do not. Yes.
Right. It's James Earl Jones. It's the voice.
Yeah.
Despite the hulking, samurai-esque medieval knight spacesuit armor, it's the voice more than anything else.
And it's what makes the character so compelling, right? Because the voice really does reverberate through you. I mean, that's always the thing. Like, that is James Earl Jones' voice is this low bass that you can feel, right? You don't just hear it, you feel it. And the character of Darth Vader, if you give him a different voice, like, he has to be commanding, he has to be terrifying, but he also has to be awe-inspiring. And like, it's really hard to imagine any moment that you're listening to you when you had the opportunity to listen to James Earl Jones speak and perform and narrate, and where you are not just drawn in.
Yeah.
Right. There is a power and there is a presence. Like, it's not just like the tone of the voice, but like he had such, I hate having to get used to using past tense. That's, don't love that. He had such like a commanding voice that you had to listen to. And Darth Vader has to have that characteristic, right? He has to be someone that you instantly listen to whether or not you want to.
Yeah.
And it's, again, like, it's the thing that, like, when he's talking to Luke, it's what makes it so compelling, is that you go from these kind of like barking orders to stormtroopers and yelling at Leia to, telling, revealing to Luke their relationship in Empire. Like, it works really well because he does all of the things. I mean, he is an incredible stage actor who starts in like Shakespeare on Broadway, like Shakespeare productions, and then moves on to all of these things we know him from. You can tell, like, the command and the presence. It's,
I mean, arguably, you could argue the single greatest line in film history is, "No, I am your father."
yes.
It's
And let's all be honest. If you have seen, full offense to Star Wars fans of the other movies, but like, we have seen how badly written a Star Wars movie can be, right? If you have attempted to watch the Amidala Anakin Skywalker romance, like that it hurts. It hurts bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the
it
dialogue
hurts like
is
sand. It gets everywhere.
God. Oh, and like,
Of course.
and here's the thing: it's not Hayden Christensen's fault, because we all know that, like, he is a good actor, and you watch him in other things, and he's great. So, like, no one is arguing that Natalie Portman can't act, but like, the dialogue makes it really hard to do. Like, sometimes space opera dialogue lends itself towards camp, and there is no point that Darth Vader feels campy. Right? There is a command that even when you're doing like, "Oh no, I'm secretly your daddy," like, James Earl Jones makes that something filled with gravitas and menace and like a touch of longing in ways that like make no sense for the actual dialogue. Except, like, James Earl Jones is capable of turning a Star Wars film into actual high drama.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. You're talking about how that voice of Vader has to have this gravitas and menace to it. And
Yes.
yet, that same voice talks to a bunch of teenage kids who have knocked a ball into their backyard when Hercules was good. Is like, and he spends it becomes in this completely different role, soothing and protective and nurturing. James Earl Jones in those few minutes in the Sandlot.
I mean, I was going to say, Sandlot is a great comparison. I think even better is when you compare him from Darth Vader to Mufasa.
Oh, well, it's two dads, right?
Right, like, put him in the one-to-one dad role, and like, Darth Vader as father is still radiating menace while also asking his son to embrace that dynamic. There is no point, even when Mufasa is being menacing, there's no point that, like, you miss the warmth. Like, so there's something like, God, James Earl Jones as a voice actor was incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing that I think the amazing that James Earl Jones was a large man, right? He's big, powerful, imposing man. And the two roles he's probably most famous for collectively, Darth Vader and Mufasa, are voice roles.
Yeah.
Which also, like, I don't want to discount the fact that, like, voice acting is acting, and you have to, God, you have to do so much work with that to be able to do that. The fact that his voice carries that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the everything in Mufasa, we've got a Mufasa film coming soon, which I don't know if he completed. Yeah, I don't know if he completed or not. I know that he retired from voice acting in 2022, and actually gave. So if you're listening and you don't know this, he actually gave Lucasfilm the rights to continue on and use his voice as Darth Vader in, I think, perpetuity. So we'll continue to hear that voice in video games and probably commercials at some point in time, is my guess, based off Disney's love of merchandise. But
yes.
yeah, a couple nights ago or a couple weeks ago, we showed actually what turned out to be his very first film, Doctor Strangelove, which I had no idea was his first. When I scheduled it, I wasn't thinking about the connections to James Earl Jones. I was like, hey, cool. James Earl Jones is in this. Maybe I had known that at some point in time, but it was like, oh, neat. Here's a young version of this guy. It was just like all the stuff going on. Peter Sellers is like doing 3 different roles, and they're all crazy and brilliant at the same time. And yet there's Baby Vader. It was cool. It was great to see this young man that we grew up with, who was already like an adult when we came out of the picture, right? He was always James Earl Jones. There was no, for us, for our generation, for late X and millennials, there was no watching James Earl Jones grow up. He was always like this weird father figure for some, in so many different ways. Field of Dreams. Do you have thoughts?
Here's the thing. It's funny. I never watched it as a kid.
Sir.
I didn't watch Field of Dreams until we moved to Iowa, because it was like okay, well, now that we're here, we just had a night where we watched Music Man and then Field of Dreams, because it needed to happen. It's so I don't have as strong of feelings about it as I perhaps should, given that I live in this state. But I'm sorry, Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones hanging out together, these are 2 actors that I would watch do just about anything, and putting them together in a film, I don't know that I again, this might be heresy, and I'm fine with that. I don't love Field of Dreams.
You and Charlie Pierce, man. What you did. You went to Boston, you hung out with Charlie, and then you were like, oh, I don't like. Now you're going to tell me that you don't like Shawshank Redemption, but that's okay. Keep going.
But I think there's something wonderful about kind of the role as the bitter and disillusioned older writer in that film, while also dealing with this weird supernatural thing that makes no sense that we never get explained to us. Right? I kind of love it. I kind of love him in it, even if nothing about the movie makes any sense to me.
There's so many great quotes from that where he's just like, you're just another one of these guys comes around looking to solve your problem. It's like, oh God, there's so much of this. We're going to come back to Jim Greer. We're going to come back to Tom Clancy stuff in a little bit, because I feel like that's really the one. So many people are going to be talking about Star Wars. And look, there's Star Wars stuff over my left shoulder right now.
Yeah.
And literally in the cup that I'm drinking, I was literally drinking from my Star Wars cup. I was telling this earlier when Lou Moore told me the news about James Earl Jones, and this has water in it. So I've decided to switch to this bottle, which has beer in it instead, as I healthily nurse my loss for James Earl Jones. You were talking earlier, he came up through Broadway, right? I mean, on stage.
Yes.
He's kind of built for it.
I don't remember if he graduated with a theater degree. He might have graduated with a theater degree, but he his early acting was all stage acting. He portrayed and a lot of it, not exclusively Shakespeare, did a lot of Shakespeare. Othello, King Lear, he played Oberon, he was Claudius in Hamlet. These are again, there's nothing surprising about it. But I think it's 1969 he gets his first Tony for Best Actor in a Play.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
This is 68, for Great White Hope.
Yeah. This is a guy who has incredible talent in all of the places you can want him to be, right? We remember him for film, but it's because people our generation, by the time we're encountering him, we are encountering him through film, because he is in the 60s, he is on stage alongside doing other things, alongside making film reviews and things like that. And then he ends up on various parts of TV roles, and then he is in films, and then he does all of the things. But I started as a theater major. I am slightly biased towards the stage, but there's a lot of interesting work that gets done to be on the stage. And he has the persona and the kind of the largeness of personality right, and a voice and a presence to inhabit roles that require this gravitas. Like, we're talking about the way that he like breathes Darth Vader to life, even though it's a role that like could in fact be absolutely absurd, right?
Yeah,
And it's not, and he makes it not. But it's also like he takes on all of these incredible stage roles that you have to imbue with a kind of gravitas and, I don't know, a firmness of character, right? Othello has to be someone. King Lear has to be someone, broken and crumbling though he is. You have to see in the midst of it all of the remnants of the glory that he had before, right? Oberon has to be whimsical and powerful and terrifying and fun all at the same time, even in a comedy, because he's the king of the Fae, right? These are roles that require something of you. Claudius has to be both villain and a slightly sympathetic character because Hamlet is the bad guy in that play.
Yeah.
And he does all of these.
Yeah. And now, now I'm thinking about his role in the Conan film.
You're talking
about being...
Okay, so listen, he can do what we see from that is that he can do everything.
He can, but like, so there's an aspect. What was it? What was the character name? Something Doom. I forget. Was it the character's name? It was like you had to have a guy whose physicality could legitimately play off of Schwarzenegger. Right? I mean,
yeah,
you have to, and that's what you've got. You've got James Earl Jones fighting off against. It's ultimately anticlimactic, I always thought, but like that just says something again about his own presence, right? So there's that. You were talking about earlier on that, he ended up doing a lot of TV work as well. And then the thing we talk about is the Tom Clancy series.
Oh God, yes,
with Jim Greer, because this is obviously, we can get into who we like as Jack Ryan, but it's always like Jim Greer is like this. I don't know, man. He shows up for 4 minutes, steals the show, and then goes on, right?
Yeah, and like you give him aggressively more, right? He is not in The Hunt for Red October a ton. I mean, he's there, but like so much of it is spent on the submarines itself. He's in more of Patriot Games and less of Clear and Present Danger, but like his death in Clear and Present Danger is like such an important part of the kind of arc of the character. Like he's just, oh God, he's so good. And it's, I mean, I love all of the Jack Ryan things. I love them. I love them with a great deal of critique because they're just CIA porn. But I love all of the Jack Ryan things, and the thing that makes them work is not actually Jack Ryan, who talks a big game about, how we should think our way through this before he goes and kills a ton of people. It's the fact that you actually have Admiral Greer there explain to you why these things are righteous and necessary and moral, or a terrible idea, or why you have to disobey some orders and do these other things instead. I mean, he becomes the government you wish existed.
I just always like the part where they're going in to brief the Secretary of Defense, and he's like, "No, Jack, you know the briefing." It's like he had this wonderful slyness to him, as well as like,
yes.
tell them what you think. All this kind of stuff. He was just like this. I mean, and he would just show up and he would do the stuff. I'm looking here. I've got his Wikipedia. Like I said, I've got his Wikipedia. He did a whole bunch of stuff, like the self-referential stuff as well. On like 2.5 Men, and well, do we have? Yeah, he did Big Bang Theory. We're gonna.
Did he? Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh,
he did.
I remember that episode. Ugh.
But he was a working actor until late in his life. Still did Mufasa again back in 2019 when they did the CGI remake of the film. Another thing we're not talking about is Coming to America.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh, that's right.
He plays Eddie Murphy's dad.
Yeah, I'd forgotten he was in it. Holy crap! Yes, of course.
You want to go soil your royal oats? He's like delightfully. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, he's so much fun when you needed. He's King Jaffe Joffer, right?
Yeah,
and he was so much fun in this stuff. So, I'm looking at this stuff. He's been everywhere, and it just feels like he became this fixture.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
This cultural icon, whatever. I don't know. But
well, it's also like he even when he started doing less as he was getting older.
Yeah.
We still think like the things that he was in were so big that they become things into themselves that live on even as he is slowly winding down his acting career later in life. He's just in so many of these films that are genuine cultural touchstones, and it's the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Like he is in all of the movies.
Yeah.
Gosh.
There is an aspect here where James Earl Jones was 93 years old when he passed today.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a run.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you feel like this guy's going to live forever. And, when I kept thinking about this today, and I thought about this in some ways when Carrie Fisher died, and my childhood heroes are dying. Does this mean that my childhood is over?
I mean, listen, that I think that's actually a really interesting question. I mean, I want to be flippant about it, but I really can't be. But I think there's a way that like we underestimate sometimes how specific pop culture moments and people and shows and films really are like the last remnants of our childhood, long after all the physical, like tangible bits of it go, right? We get older, we start feeling old. The places we grew up in where we were young, they all change. They don't last. But there are these moments where I sit down and I watch Star Wars and I'm a kid again.
Yeah.
Right. Now, part of that is that I still have a working VCR because I only watch Star Wars on VHS. There is none of this extended edition stuff. I go old school about this. It is still my childhood VHSs that I watched as a kid. But I think you're right that there is something about the way that there are people who even if you don't think about them at a day-to-day level, like they have to still exist in the world. These moments of your childhood that exist through the TV shows and the actors and musicians, where like as long as they're still out there, there is a piece of it alive.
Yeah, and I think that like I never met James Earl Jones. I wish I had, like so many of these other celebrities who had like these roles in my life, but it's like losing them. I don't know. It feels like you're losing a piece of you. Maybe it doesn't make any. Maybe that's the brilliance of the arts. That maybe that's the hold that the arts have over maybe any other profession, is that people carry it with them as a piece of their own life, whether they're a musician or an actor or something along those lines. Things that frankly, as historians, we aren't, or other folks maybe aren't, because everybody carries that art with them, and it does have a sense of the finality of the human experience. Like, if Darth Vader can die, so can I. And what does that mean? I don't know. I don't want to turn this into a morbid thing, but there is a taste of that, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, we talk about the three roles of James Earl Jones that really are how I immediately think of him are all ones where the character dies within the arc, where you have to let him go even within the medium that you're embracing. Right?
Yeah.
Darth Vader dies at the end, but Darth Vader has a complete arc as a character where he is a looming menace, and then he is a malevolent, destructive father figure, and redeems himself at the end. And you get this complex arc, and then you have to let go of him. James Greer pops into these three films and then dies in the last one, and dies assuring Jack Ryan that like it's okay, that he can carry on without him. Mufasa dies having prepared Simba to do all the things, and appears, only one more time in visions at the end that you're here and you're ready for this. Right. James Earl Jones is not our surrogate father. James Earl Jones is a real person, and not just like the fictional constructs, but like he is someone who I can only imagine that every actor wants to matter enough that people are going to mourn you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. That people are going to remember you.
And I got to tell you, at the same time, when news broke, I started getting all these messages on social media. Hey, have you changed your mind? I hadn't announced what we were going to do this week on the watch party that we're going to do, that we do on Sunday nights. If you're listening to the podcast for the very first time, we do a watch party every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We live tweet it now on Blue Sky. And people are like, what are we going to do? Are we going to change it? And I was like, I hadn't chosen it. And it's like, you don't want to mourn, you want to celebrate.
Yeah.
So the pick was immediate. For me, it wasn't Star Wars. It wasn't Darth Vader. It was actually The Lion King. We've done Star Wars much.
Yeah.
I was like, Mufasa's this dude, right? We're going to celebrate James Earl Jones this weekend. We're all going to get together. We're going to watch his work together as this big group of people. If you're listening in, it'll be a whole bunch of people around the world watching this movie at the same time, talking about how much we love this film and his contributions to it. So I think that the cool part of this is we say, okay, we lost a Titan today, but did we? Because the cool thing about his art is that it lives on, right? We'll celebrate that this weekend, So
yeah,
I don't know. I just I felt like I wanted to say something about it because I feel like I grew up with the band. He was always. You're right. He wasn't a surrogate father. He wasn't anybody. He was a father to his own child, right? But he was a presence.
Yeah,
I think he was just he was one of many voices that kind of told us who we were as people, right? All the good and bad, and ugly, the ugliness of Darth Vader, the goodness of Mufasa, whatever, the submarine blowing upness of Jim Greer.
What the ability to laugh himself in the Big Bang Theory? Like, I'd forgotten that episode existed. I think that might have been the only time he actually met Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, when he's like, "I love Star Wars too,"
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's good. Tom, what are your final thoughts on James Earl Jones? We're sitting back here, we're kind of punch drunk from thinking about James Earl Jones the last few hours.
He's going to be missed. There are. I don't want to say that actors like him don't come around very often because what do I know? There are lots of great actors today, but he's someone who he'll be missed.
Yeah,
right. He'll be missed. He was an incredible actor, and you always remembered him in everything he was in. And he played a wide variety of roles, and they were all unique and felt alive and felt real, and were also all him. World's a little bit less without him.
I'm going to say this about James Earl Jones, and I say this about a lot of people. It's how cool is it that of all the time periods in the history of the Earth, we got to inhabit the Earth for a little while. It's the same time a dude like that rolled around, right?
Yeah.
And through his work, he made our lives a little bit better. We're sitting here talking about this guy we never met tonight, but I feel like we grew up with the guy. Like there was a piece of him we knew, and there's a piece of him embedded in us. So, James Earl Jones, wherever you are, I think, I hope you're resting well. It was a good times. So, with that, I'm going to draw us to a close tonight, Thomas. I don't want to keep us too long because we haven't started crying yet. But yeah, man, James Earl Jones, pretty awesome dude.
Yep. Rest in peace.
Yeah. All right, everybody, check it out. Thank you for listening in to the pod. This was a stripped down version of this. It was just us listening. Maybe thinking about James Earl Jones helps you out, whatever. Maybe just like thinking about the guy, whatever. We're going to be doing a watch party on Sunday nights, the 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find The Lion King on Disney Plus or on your DVD or whatever you have got. Maybe even a VHS came out in 1994. But if you want to live tweet us with us, you can do so. We'll be out there. Look for me on Blue Sky. Look for the hashtag HATM. We've got more pods coming for you this week, including a retrospective on the life of Nicolas Cage coming out on Thursday. So stick around. Thanks for being here. Ciao for now.